I want to start by extending an invitation. Sometimes on a Sunday, after the special music, we have somebody from the congregation give us an inspirational interval. And it's another way to connect. I want to invite anybody who has something they feel inspired by that they want to share, for 5 minutes, to be a part of this. Tell me. We want you to practice. We want you to come and tell me, and I'll help you. I'll support you. There's people who've done it, who've never done anything like it before, and so I want just to extend the invitation because you have some inspiration to share. Right? You have something that you might want to share, that you want to read, or that you want to say. Or you want to sing. Sometimes some of our little girls have sung songs to us. So extend that invitation. And then I want to tell you that I just want to share a joke. I'm going to describe it. It's a bunch of runners running a marathon. And I don't know if you've ever run a race, but there's tables with water and tables with Powerade and sometimes tables with healthy snacks. And when you're running a race, you look forward to those tables. And then my favorite cartoon right now is there's the table of the water. And then there's a guy sitting at the table who looks like the classic guru. He's cross-legged, he has long hair, and there's a sign, "Questioning the meaning of life, stop here." Because believe me, at about mile 9, there's a whole lot of questioning. Why am I here? What am I doing? And the reason that's funny is because it's funny, and the other reason it's funny is because, life is a half marathon, right? Who doesn't hit whatever wall we hit and question, why am I here? This Powerade is not enough to get me going. And you need a little help and support, which is why we're here. I have a reading from Matthew, chapter 18, verses 21 and 22. Then Peter came and said to him, "Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times?" Jesus said to him, "Not 7 times, but I tell you, 77 times. I want to read something from Otto Scharmer from a book called Theory U. The future of our social systems, societies, and the planet as a whole depends in no small way on the choices we make now. One first response, which is muddling through the same old, doing the same thing, right, that we've always done, creates more chaos, breakdowns, and suffering. Another response, which is moving back and closing down, creates even worse outcomes, such as racism or fascism. Only the third option, moving forward and opening up, creates a space for co-sensing what is going on, a space for letting go of the old and co-creating the new. There's nothing as dramatic as, probably in many of our lifetimes, because we haven't been in a war, as 9/11. Everybody I know remembers where they were, remembers what they saw, and remembers the effect it had on them. And we have a lot of other examples now, right? Nothing quite so dramatic, maybe, but we have a lot of painful examples of unrest and chaos in the world. So what response are we going to make? Are we going to just muddle through? I tell you, a lot of times I feel tired and I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. And yes, I also react the other way, the second response, which is to, close down and make them the problem. It's not me, it's them who's causing the problem. And I just want to wall myself off and keep myself safe. I'm not terrorizing anybody. It takes a lot of spiritual strength to choose to let go and co-create the new. And maybe the first part is the letting go part. Which is why I chose to talk today about forgiveness. And I have 3 dramatic stories about mothers. Two of them are related to 9/11. So I want to read you this, so bear with me and just listen, sit back. This is a story. This is from Voice of America. This is the story of Phyllis Rodriguez. Many Americans felt the need to retaliate after the attacks on the United States in 2001. And ever since then, U.S. forces have waged a worldwide war against the Islamic extremists who claimed responsibility. But not all Americans seek retribution to ease their pain. Phyllis Rodriguez is one mother who expresses forgiveness, not hate, toward those who killed her son years ago on September 11th. Phyllis Rodriguez's son Greg died in the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. He was a computer specialist working on the 103rd floor of the North Tower. She recalls how she found out that something terrible had happened that Tuesday morning. On our answering machine was a message from Greg, our son, that said, "There's been a terrible accident at the World Trade Center. I'm okay. Call Elizabeth, our daughter-in-law." But Greg Rodriguez was not okay, and neither were nearly 3,000 others. I was just hoping that he had survived and not allowing myself to admit the worst, recalls Rodriguez. I came soon enough when Greg was declared dead. And with it came his parents' conscious decision to make a difference. The main thing that we realized very early, the morning of the 12th, is that our government, given its history, was going to do something military and violent in retaliation in the name of our son, and that wasn't going to do any good, and we didn't support it. Phyllis Rodriguez and her husband Orlando released an open letter to the then president. It ended up being circulated around the country and around the world. It was part of the way that helped us cope with the loss, she explained. The couple wanted no part of revenge. In fact, they opposed the death penalty for the man who became known as the 20th hijacker, Zacharias Moussaoui. Phyllis befriended Zacharias' mother, Aisha El-Wafi. I felt this woman has to be very, very courageous because her son is the most hated person probably at the moment. And there she was standing with her son. We realized that what we had in common was our common humanity. We were human beings. It is a very valuable part of my life and my healing. I feel terrible sorrow at all the losses, says Phyllis, all the bereft families. We had the whole world in sympathy with us. We could have been leaders and working for world peace and peace in the Middle East. And what did we do? We blew it, Rodriguez added. Phyllis Rodriguez says she copes with the loss of her only son by opposing war and participating in human rights and forgiveness projects. I don't think it happened for a reason, but it did happen. And I feel fortunate that I had the inner resources to respond in the way that I did. Rodriguez says she is at peace knowing she will never see her son again, but is not at peace with the state of the world. That is why she says she is trying to make a difference. If you looked at the email I sent out, the blast, there were pictures of 3 women, and 2 of the women in the picture was Phyllis standing with Aisha El-Wafi, who made a connection, and Phyllis, who forgave this person and his mother. That's the way that those parents chose. Okay? And let's be above the politics. It's not about the politics right now. And if I'm really careful. I really don't. I'm not espousing any political creed or action. But I am just pointing out what this lady did, how she tried to make a difference. And then there's another mother, far away from 9/11, but just another grieving mother, Anne Marie Coburn from England. In July 2013, Anne Marie Coburn's 15-year-old daughter, Martha Fernbach, spent the afternoon in an Oxford park with friends when she took half a gram of pure MDMA, which killed her. A 17-year-old man was given an 18th-month supervision order for supplying Class A drugs. Anne Marie wrote a book, 5,742 Days, which is the number of days Martha, her daughter, lived, which chronicles a mother's journey through loss. This is what she says. I haven't felt angry as I've converted my anger into positive action. Allowing anger to fester would be the final nail in the coffin for me. I have looked for positive and healthy ways to cope, because if I don't find ways to be happy in my new life, I will not survive. I have never focused much on the offender because I don't need retribution. What he did was very unfortunate, but he didn't do it deliberately. At the final hearing, I said that I didn't want him to go to prison, although some of my family disagree with me. They wanted him to be punished. But I just said, I'll never ever get justice for Martha because she's dead. So why waste 2 young lives instead of just one? I hope he does something good with his life, something he can be proud of. This story came from the Forgiveness Project. The Forgiveness Project is a beautiful website with many, many stories of forgiveness. Their mission is to teach forgiveness through real stories, with real people who have had very difficult things to forgive. And yeah, this is really dramatic forgiveness. I just want to read a few things from the stories I want to reiterate. Okay, the first thing is, from 2001, not all Americans sought retribution to ease their pain. Phyllis Rodriguez says, we realized that we had in common our common humanity. And this, she says she copes with the loss of her only son by opposing war and participating in human rights and forgiveness projects. This is what Anne Marie says. I haven't felt angry as I've converted my anger into positive action. Allowing anger to fester would be the final nail in the coffin for me. I have looked for positive and healthy ways to cope, because if I don't find ways to be happy in my new life, I will not survive. Those are like really dramatic stories of forgiveness. And each of us have lost, and we each of us have probably fairly dramatic stories of forgiveness of our own. And maybe we have stories that aren't quite done. I know that it seems to me that I've forgiven everybody, but every now and then I get this feeling of anger toward, it's usually more about an event or something that happened than the person's like, oh, wow, I still have some more forgiveness work to do. And what I want to emphasize after the stories that grip us, and we have these good examples, is to talk about the spiritual steps to forgiveness. It's in the Bible. It says right there. I don't know how many things were emphasized more than 77 times in the gospel. 77 times. That means if somebody does something to you 77 times, you think they're not learning their lesson, right? But our lesson is to keep forgiving. That's asking a lot. But here's how we do it. The first step is ask for help from God. Don't do it alone. Ask for help. The help is there. The spiritual support is there. The God inside you and all around you. and the God that shows up as a people in your life as love. Okay? Ask for help. The next thing to do, another way to get on with that, is definitely the way Phyllis Rodriguez did. Understanding your the needs and the feelings of the people, the other people. You know, Phyllis understood. She put herself in the shoes of the mother of the other, the 20th. I want to get this right. Anyway, she of the mother of the other son who was considered a terrorist on the ground. Right? She put herself. She understood. What would it take? She probably asked, what would it take for somebody to be so frustrated that they would do this terrible act? What would it take for a mother to still support her son? You know, she asked herself that. Okay. Another thing to do is understand your own feelings and needs. You know, I'm not telling you to shove stuff down. Believe me, it's not about shoving the anger down. It is about understanding. You have to have understanding and compassion. Just as important as it is to have understanding and compassion for the other person, it is even more so to have understanding and compassion for yourself in any situation when you need to forgive. You don't want to make little of it. You want to understand and love yourself and have the compassion for it. Okay, both of these ladies, these women, did finding something positive to do. Converting your anger into positive action, doing something to make a difference. A lot of times that's what we read when people have terrible tragedies, you know. They say, the only way, you know, this is what's going to help me get on, to do some good in the world, to be inspired by the person, or to be inspired by the person and do some good in the world in their name. Or to be inspired in any way and to do some good, to be a force for positive, you know, to make things better for somebody else. And then the last spiritual step might be the hardest. Identifying what is unforgiven in yourself and forgive yourself. A Course in Miracles in Lesson 63 says, "The light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. How holy are you who have the power to bring peace to every mind? How blessed are you who can learn to recognize the means for letting this be done through you." And it's all about identifying what is unforgiven in yourself. You know? All of the great teachers over and over again remind us that whatever we see out there is a reflection of what's in here. Whatever we see out there, even horrendously terrible things, okay? They're not the exact mirror, but they touch off something. Have you ever been angry? Have you ever put your own needs in front of somebody else's? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I've reacted not from an open mind and an open heart. So it's critical that each of us identifies that and forgives ourselves. That really is the main step. But all of those things work. And never forget their support and ask God for the help. You know, however you want to pray it, like, help me in my forgiveness. You know? Let me remember to be open. Let me remember to love and accept myself and everyone else. All those things. So forgiveness is indeed the way to let go. It is indeed the way to let go. It is a beautiful way to let go. And let me just describe one last thing. Okay? The beautiful freedom of when you're just able to be that clear light, because you're not bowed down by the weight of anger, by the weight of wanting revenge, by the weight of self-hate, or any of those things that unforgiveness feels like. Instead, you're light. You're like all of the 35 kids at the Cub Scout sleepover. Right? You're like all of the people at Disneyland, even the babies who are tired and crying. It's like all of it. You're just happy, you're free, and that's the connection to spirit. You're like these guys, right? Like these guys. Let's take an offering for unity. I invite you to take your love offering in your hand.